Are you ready?
No.
Come on, guy, get it together.
I'm ready.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the S3 Magazine podcast. I know it's been a little while since we've done one of these because, to be honest, me and Wooly got a new software, a new app to go along and try to make the podcast better. And to be honest, it's been bad. It's been really bad. It keeps deleting everything that we're doing. And we had a really good one last week that it totally just kicked into the trash can for no reason at all. So we did it what any sensible human would do, and we gave up for a while. But now we're starting back again, and Wooly is apparently all amped up about something that Jim Farley said. Wooly, floor's yours.
I'm not amped up. I don't care, man. Um, Jim Farley, for those of you who don't know, is the current CEO of Ford. But let's go back to this other thing. Yeah, it actually has not been that long since we've done a podcast. It's just been a while since we've done one that's actually worked. So that's why we're not really prepared today. Not that we're ever prepared anyway for a podcast. We just kind of wing it and see what happens. You see, all right, so me and Mike always talk at lunch. That's our thing. And when we talk at lunch, it's always about this kind of stuff. Man, did you see what Jim Farley from Ford said? Or whatever. We're talking about current events. We usually get all fired up about it. And then we go even broader and we just talk about life in general and what's screwed up in the world today. And we're always like, hey, that would be a really cool podcast. We should do that later. And then we do, and we get in the moment again. And then this new software kicks us out and punts it to the trash, and it's hard to get amped to do it again. And it sucks because that last one that we did, man, in my memory, it was really good. I don't remember what you can't recreate it. You either get it or you don't. Now
The,
the
the
good
magic
news
is
is,
gone from that night. Just know it was great.
yeah, we would have been right up there with Rogan. Um. Anyway, story of our lives. Now, this software, if we can figure it out, which we're in a learning curve, if we can figure it out, it'll be better. It'll be better audio. It'll be a clearer picture. It kind of takes out the dead times and the screw ups, or like if I cough and you're talking. Anyway, whatever. Who gives a shit? Anyway, Jim Farley, from the CEO of Ford, what's he doing now? He is saying, I'm just going off memory here. All right. So the great thing about Jim Farley that you guys have got to know is that he's an open book, man. He just says what he's thinking when he thinks it, and there's a certain level of honesty there, which I appreciate. But sometimes it's like, oh, man, you can't just, you just can't say it like that, man.
That's for sure true. If you look back at all like the news stories and stuff we've done over the past couple of years, especially since the EV stuff started happening, that guy steps on his dong a lot. He just has no filter. He's got no problem telling you what the plan is and what they screwed up and what they're going to do moving forward. And I think it makes him an open book and really cool, and also just a total moron all at the same time. But hey,
Yeah,
he's making a ton of money and I'm not, so he's obviously the genius compared to me.
I mean, I appreciate it. It's nice not to get lied to. But there's been things that this man has said, like you said, over the course of the last, let's call it 2 to 3 years since the whole EV thing really became political. I remember, this is just off the cusp. He told his dealers that EVs were going to be brutal for them, and
Yeah.
and then he was like, it's gonna cost you like $1 million to even start selling EVs, but you're gonna have to do it. We're gonna do it direct, and you're pretty much just gonna take them and deliver it. I mean, like, the things that this man has said. I remember one time he took a Ford Lightning from California to Vegas and was like, "Man, that was awful." he was like, we got a long way to go here. That was not an enjoyable experience. Like, we spent a lot of time, downtime charging. Wow, we didn't think this through. It's like, Jesus, Jim. But you know what? I appreciate that honestly, more than a Mary Barrow, which is the CEO of GM, which just lies through her freaking teeth like a politician. You know, so sorry, Mary. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to diss you. I'm just trying to say, you know, I appreciate the open book. I don't love Jim Farley's kind of lack of a backbone. He's always like, man, I love to smell like burning gas, and I'm an enthusiast at heart. But you know what? I got to answer to these guys, so that's just what we're gonna do, and we're gonna do EVs. That's Jim in a nutshell. Anyway, getting to the topic of this podcast, Jim came out and said, "Sheesh, we need to make Americans fall in love with small cars again." Now, do you want to take this for a second and tell the people why that's ironic coming from Ford?
That is the word I was going to use. It's ironic because isn't he the guy that basically wiped all of the small car options off of the Ford lineup and basically just said the American people, nay, all the people of the world want big ass, heavy floating bricks. So that's what we're going to make. That's what we're going to sell them. That's what they love. Give them what they want. Wow. Gas guzzling, massive bricks.
In Jim Farley's defense, and again, listeners, we're going off the cuff here. This is not rehearsed. I don't know. I don't remember exactly when he came in. It might have been a little bit before he came in, but around the same time, basically Ford made the big decision, if you guys remember, to kill all cars aside from the Mustang. They had a really good thing going, and me and you both bought into this, you know, like with the ST stuff. They had the Fiesta ST, they had a Focus ST, they had a Focus RS, they had Mustang GTs, they had GT350s, they had Raptors, they had, at this time, the Bronco was coming in. Like, there was serious energy at Ford. If you were going to be a fan of a modern car company, there are a lot of reasons that you could defend being a fan of Ford. In fact, we went so far as to make a section in the magazine when we were still printing at that time that was called Ford Attack, because Ford was attacking, in our opinion. That was not a paid partnership. That was genuine. That's what we saw. We saw, as car enthusiasts, we saw a lot of the stage being set for, like, the EcoBoost being a future heavy swap option, similar to like a K-swap or an LS swap. The reason for that is that they were using the same motors in performance cars, but also they were using those motors in crossovers and SUVs. So there was going to be a lot of basically junkyard motors out. Anyway, the stage was all set for awesomeness, and then Ford did what Ford does, and they step on their own dong, as you so eloquently put it earlier, and they basically said, hey, there's been some buzzwords on Wall Street, you know, EV and tech is in, so all this fun manual transmission shit, like, we're killing all of that, and the Mustang will stay because it's a Mustang. We can't kill that, but we will turn it into an electric SUV, and other than that, we're just going to do SUVs and trucks because, you know, that was the problem. With the ST and the RS, they brought it to America for like one model year. You know what I mean? Like, and then they quit. It's essentially like...
Which is weird because, at least in my mind, if I owned Ford or ran Ford and made decisions, the ST and the RS line would be like the easiest and most plausible jump to get people from going to a fun, quirky little fun kind of sports car to basically the same platform but as an EV. And it would make more sense. You know, like everybody wants the freaking, I want 2 motors and 1,000 horsepower and the EV is going to weigh 9,000 pounds. And it's always the most ridiculous thing out there. It makes no sense when you think of it as actually being something that's green and good for the planet. Like, if we're really going to make this EV thing work and we actually truly give a shit about the environment, it needs to be small vehicles. And the ST stuff was absolutely perfect for that. I don't understand why they couldn't have just kept that going and then that been the jump into it. That would have made so much more sense than what they're doing right now. Anyway, I cut you off. Sorry. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying. The ST stuff was a really good gateway drug into Ford, if that makes any sense. Like, you know, I've driven them. I've driven a lot of new cars. The the Fiesta, in my opinion, was the one. The Focus obviously had more mass appeal. It was more versatile. It was nicer, according to more people. Even though the Fiesta was less compromised, it was rowdy, and it was a rowdy Econobox. It made no apologies for it. I still have one. I love it. But the STRS stuff in general, it drove more alive than like a new GTI. A new GTI might have had the numbers on paper, but the Fiesta and the Focus, man, it had the attitude. They were scrappy, for lack of a better word. They were fun to drive, even stock. They made boost quick. They pulled hard. They sounded good. There was something about them that made you want to kind of rice out a little bit, like in a good way, in a hot hatch way, but true to the hot hatch icons of like the 90s. Anyway, that's why I say that they were a good gateway, because with the direction that Ford was going, they could capture the young market with something like a Focus ST, and that person would grow up, maybe, get a big boy job and get a Focus RS. Then he would get married and have kids and get an Explorer ST. And like, they had the stage set. A car company, and Akio Toyoda from Toyota talks about this all the time, like they try to make cars for all people. And Ford was going that route. They were making cars to make you a Ford loyalist. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what you needed, there was a Ford that was pretty radical that would get that job done. Anyway,
Yeah.
they pulled out of all of it. This was like 2019, maybe. And we were adamant and screaming and bitching at that time, saying, you guys need a small car. You need a small, affordable option, and you are killing that. And geez, you guys are always talking about efficiency, and it sure does seem efficient to have a small, affordable, economical car. And it sure does not seem efficient to be making full-size crew cab truck EVs. If you're gonna go the EV, the way that America approached EVs, from our government to our car manufacturers, completely effed EVs. I mean, I think we're seeing now that it's created a resistance, despite it might or might not be a good choice for you. It's not a good choice for everybody, but now there's become a resistance to it, because you cannot come in and say that something that's 9,000 pounds and that has a 3,000 pound battery is good for the earth. That's bullshit. That is fashionably green. That's fashionably sustainable, however you want to put it. The reality is, if we're going to go EV, which is kind of an if now, at least it's been kind of put on hold a little bit, the way to go EV is got to be light. It's got to be small. You got to use what you've got. You got to kind of think like a racer, right? You got to think like, how can we make the most out of this? Okay, well, you got to get the battery size down, which means the car has to be smaller, because that's the only way you're going to make it affordable and lighter. You got to be realistic about range. You can't be making six-figure plus EVs and calling it sustainable.
Yeah.
It's horseshit. So now Jim Farley is coming out after their EV rollout has essentially failed. We can say that, at least right now, as of July 2024, it's been a debacle. And now he's going, what we need to do? We need to make these things smaller so that they can be lighter with a smaller battery and thus more affordable.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you are the ones that killed the small cars. It sure would be nice right now if we could have a $23,000 turbo 6-speed Fiesta ST, which we had, and we gave up to replace it with $50,000+ EV options.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, old Jimmy boy, he knows how to pivot. He knows how to change the direction of the company quick. But to be honest, like I know so much of what we say and so much of what we do kind of always goes back to the EV argument. I think that, we've known about this push for a long time, even before it happened. But I think that these CEOs of these auto manufacturers have seen this coming from even way farther before than we did. And I think that was what happened. I think they saw this EV future looming. They knew what it was going to involve. They knew how freaking far behind Tesla they were and what was going to have to be involved here and how much money was going to have to get sunk into R&D. And I think last time I checked, Ford is losing on average like over $1 billion per quarter on just the EV segment alone of what they're doing. That has nothing to do with the rest of the company. That segment alone, go ahead.
Side note, if you want to know why a new Mustang GT is $50,000, it's not just inflation. It's because you're paying for their fuck ups on the EV side. Sorry, go ahead.
It's also, to that point, it's also, I think, why they cut all the cars off. I think they said there's no way we can tackle this whole EV thing, get people to pay premium for F-150s and Mustangs and everything else, and keep this stuff going with the RS and the STs and just the cars in general. So the cars are just gone. And then the CEOs do what every other CEO do. And they go, hey, we're doing something new. What sells the best? F-150 and Mustang and SUVs. Okay, cool. Well, that's the first stuff that we're hitting with the EV side of things. We're basically just going to turn those into EVs because they will be the easiest sales because they already sell. And then that's what they did. They're just trying to do this as simply as possible. And it is just, it's not working. I guess it's kind of a gentle way to put it.
You lied to us. Like they, not Mike Sanders.
Yeah.
He's the real deal. The car companies and the current administrations, and I'm not just slamming our own in the U.S., I'm slamming Europe, they all lied to us. And they didn't even try to make it make sense, which is the infuriating part. Anybody that understands cars understood that this was a freaking lie. You cannot have sustainable EV Escalades. It's not, it's an oxymoron. An EV has almost got to be a single occupant car, at least in this stage of the game. You've got to change what you think. It's got to be small, low range. It's built for the person that has a specific routine that's localized, that does it every day, that knows where they're going to go. That's not most Americans. That might be the urban areas, and it might work well in urban areas. But you can't sell these 3-row, $100,000+ EVs. And keep in mind, I'll say it again, the battery in something like a Hummer EV is 3,000 pounds. That's as much as a late 90s Mitsubishi Eclipse weighs. That's more than an S2000 weighs.
The whole car.
That's what I'm saying. And you are carrying that battery around. And if something goes wrong with it, if it goes bad, if you damage it, if you hit a curb like your friend in the Tesla did, it's fucked. It is ruined, and it's $30,000. The prices to repair it's just, it is at its very core not sustainable. And I'm not just talking about the environment, because it digs big holes in third world countries that we can't see to make cleaner air in Southern California. That's not sustainable, but it's not sustainable from a financial point of view. It's not sustainable from any point of view. And that's the thing. It was such a lie. The marketing that we saw from these companies talking about sustainability, every piece of marketing was talking about sustainability. And anybody that knew cars was like, you're lying to us. And the car companies have done more damage to their reputation in the past 3 years, at least to the enthusiast sector, which I know we're a minority. The masses kind of go with it and they're not educated enough to realize they're being lied to. But the enthusiast base is very vocal. And, they didn't even try to tell the truth. If Jim Farley had come out at the beginning and said, hey, guys, if you want to be sustainable, you're going to have to make some adjustments to your lifestyle. The big opulent 3-row expeditions, let's call it what it is. It's not sustainable. So, if you want to be sustainable, pack your family into this small little econo. They didn't do that. they tried to sell Americans on, you can have it all. You can be good for the earth in your 10,000-pound electric vehicle. It was a fashion statement. That's all it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're way off base, but like that's the irritating thing, is that guys like you and me and other people that are in automotive enthusiasts have been slamming these guys, saying, what the hell? You took away the affordable cars right before the economy crashed and right before people need affordable, and there's no option for them. There is no sub $30,000 option. And now he's coming around, and it's backtracking. It's just backtracking, and we're going to see a lot more of it.
But this isn't the first time they've screwed up in this exact same way. Yeah, I was in college, or actually, I was just graduating from college during the 2008 crash. And right before that crash happened was when, obviously, we had wars in the Middle East and all that stuff was going on with the oil supply. And I remember, I literally remember like rushing out to get gas because it was like $10 a gallon. And I was like, I have to be able to actually go home for something. I had to drive 2 hours home from school. But right before that, the same thing happened. All the automotive manufacturers, especially in the US, got rid of a lot of the EconoBox, fun, quirky little 4-cylinder cars, and they went full on big trucks, big SUVs. Every car had a V8 in it. And sure, I mean, that stuff's cool when everything's good, but when gasoline is all of a sudden absolutely unaffordable, everybody wants a freaking 4-cylinder, and no one had one to offer.
Yeah, so this was 2008, right? And we had a very inefficient lineup of cars in America.
Mm-hmm.
Japanese cars, not as much. But in America, it was just really inefficient Explorers and things like that. And I mean, basically, they went bankrupt, right? Like that's where the bailouts happened. And they learned their lesson for a short time. And there was
very short.
I mean, like essentially, that's where cars like probably the Focus ST and Fiesta ST were kind of born out of that. Okay, let's do economical hatchbacks. Well, we got to make them fun so people want them. Let's put an ST badge on them and put a turbo on, yada yada. So we got there, but how quickly we forget, you know. And then we you know, the economy was good. We scrapped all the small cars. We made opulence, and now the economy gets bad, and people, it's not adding up. You know, it's man, I don't know how many times can you make the same mistake as a company.
I mean, a lot. They say everything comes full circle. And the question with these guys is how many times are they going to make that loop? I mean, it's getting to be like a freaking NASCAR track. One thing that technology has kind of shown us is, like, with better technology and quicker communication and faster turnaround, is you end up making the same mistakes more often because you're not having to wait for it to come all the way back around again, because life moves so much faster now than it used to back in the day. So, yeah, man, I expect them to continuously make these same mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Well, and I'm getting out of my league here because I don't know much about it, but you can fill me in. I think these mistakes are coming because they're not building cars based off of their own knowledge and expertise. They're running a company based off of Wall Street and investment trends. And again, am I wrong here? But we need to let the professionals be professionals. And I feel like I don't play in Wall Street. That's not my scene. But like, you're letting trends and investors and that kind of thing dictate what you're doing as a company. That's backwards. You're the professionals. You kind of need to. Nobody understands the market better than Ford, GM, Toyota. Like, these guys are the freaking professionals. It's not the investors. It's not BlackRock. It's not those guys. Like, and if we keep catering to those guys, what, am I off base? You're laughing. If we cater to, like, let's not call it Wall Street. Let's call it like virtue signaling, you know, from an investment point of view. If we cater to that, like, we're going to constantly be going through this. We're going to go through the hip, trendy hashtag words like sustainability, and then an election will happen. Somebody else will get in office, and we'll be like, ah, crap, never mind that. Let's bring back what we were doing 4 years ago. And it's just going to keep going and keep going and keep fluctuating.
All right, so the reason I was chuckling a little bit is because CEOs, in that sense, are in a little bit of an impossible situation because they're trying to serve too many masters at one time. We look at it as like you should be making the best cars for your consumers, and that's definitely a big part of it. So the CEO is trying to put forth the best lineup for the best pricing to compete against their competitors and to go and sell cars, right? But that's not the only people they have to please. You were saying that Wall Street and investment firms and everything are not part of the equation. They are a massive part of the equation in a couple of different ways. First of all, a lot of those dudes from Wall Street probably sit on the board at Ford, and they have direct influence over what Farley is allowed to do and the direction of the company that he has to take it. Also, on top of that, and most people don't really grasp this concept, but when you look at like the stock price of a company, it very rarely has much to actually do with what the company's true evaluation is. How much money is it truly worth? You don't look at a stock and go, oh, that stock's $200 a share, must be worth whatever, X amount of dollars. That's not really true. A stock will fluctuate all over the place, all day long, all night long, based on demand of the stock itself. It's like it's its own product. Are you able to sell the stock? Are you able to sell the sizzle of the company? Bad news makes people sell it, so demand goes down, price goes down. Good news makes people want to buy it. Price goes up, people want to buy it, they want to grab it up. And the fact is, in order for Ford, for example, and Jim Farley to have all of the buying power and you know the savvy and the trading and everything that they need to have to properly run that company, they need for the price to be as high as possible. They need to have people investing in it, not just Joe Schmoes like me and you, or even the BlackRock or the Wall Street guys. They need like the Edward Jones and the Charles Schwabs, those IRAs and all that stuff to be saying Ford needs to be part of the packages that we are trying to sell. The demand needs to be high for the stock in order for the company to be able to function well enough to actually give you guys the cars that you want. I know that was a really long-winded way for me to go into that, but it's true. And this is why a lot of people hate Wall Street, because of what it forces. It forces companies to play by unfair rules. You know, and like I said, Jim Farley, he's not a bad guy. He's an open book. And again, I do not envy his position because he is in an impossible situation. He's getting paid a buttfuck ton of money to do it, but he's in a tough situation for sure. You can blank that out. I didn't mean to say that. My bad.
No, it's cool. Is this, man? You know, that's the thing. Is this just where we're at in the car industry and in pretty much every other industry? You kind of have to play the game. See, I'm just an old soul. I'm just old school. I don't like the game. I like the Ford versus Ferrari era where they just, you know, they built what they wanted to freaking build, you know, and they did what they wanted to do. And the owner of the company, his last name was Ford. You know what I mean? Like that. And we've just passed that. And I don't know, man. We're just in an era where it's all bullshit, where mechanics is out and software is in. And all of these companies are essentially China influenced, if not China owned already, but they just keep their logo. You know what I mean? Like, it's happening one by one, man. We're watching these companies get bought by Chinese companies, and I mean, that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day, but it's these companies.
I mean, this is equivalent of like the tech bubble from the 2000s. You know, everybody's just trying to figure out the landscape and how they're going to get theirs. That's realistically what's happening here. And these companies, especially whenever you have an administration, politics that are forcing you to go in that direction, they're just playing ball, man. They're playing ball, and it is not going nearly as well as they thought it was going to. And that's why a lot of them have a lot of egg on their face, and that's why we have a lot to talk about, because we
Well,
get to sit
it's
back and say, I told you so.
yeah. I mean, this is the fun part where we get to say "I told you so" a lot, because it's what we've been preaching for years. But it it's just an interesting time in history because the governments have gotten with the CEOs of the automotive industry and decided that they were going to tell the people what they were going to buy. And the people have responded and said, no, you're not going to tell us what we're going to buy. Cars are staying on the road longer. People are not getting new cars as quickly. The average age of the cars on the road is record long. I think it's like 12 years now. Don't quote me on that. Could be
Yeah.
a little bit more than that. But people are not playing ball. We've never seen this since we've been car enthusiasts, where the actual people that care about cars are not wanting the new cars.
Yeah.
It's really weird. You've always, since cars have been cars, like people have always been excited about the new models. And now the car enthusiasts are going, I better buy the car that I'm could essentially have for a long, long time now.
Yeah.
Like my wife's in the market for a car, kind of, and it's like, I don't know. I think the car that you have is the better long-term choice. She's got a 2015 4Runner TRD Pro, and I was like, that car was built to outlast the sun, and that's what it's doing. And because it's got some miles on it, she wants to get rid of it. But I'm like, what you're getting is going to be a whole lot more tech and a whole lot less mechanical durability. It's weird. It's just weird that we're crossing a line,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. I guess that's kind of it for this podcast. It is interesting to watch, in conclusion, the CEOs say the things that the enthusiasts have been screaming for 2 to 3 years now. I guess we get a little redemption and vindication on that end, but it's frustrating that, we have to basically flip our whole automotive industry upside down every 4 years, depending on regulations now.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you said it well. I don't think I need to expound on it any. Yeah, man, that's it.
That's it. All right. Hope you guys are at your destination or finished working out or whatever you do when you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, if you guys actually hear this, if you actually get this podcast, it's a software called Riverside, and that means it worked out really, really well. If you don't hear this, then it's called Riverside, and they can go themselves.